All right, Jenks, let's talk some basketball. Playoffs so far entering Friday. Unders 29 and 16, favorites go 31 and 14 straight up, but just 24 and 21 against the spread. And here's a game where maybe the spread will matter. The Sixers at the Heat. The Heat laying a big number here, 7.5 point favorites, total 208 and a half. And the big story here, Joel Embiid, a broken bone around his eye, did not travel to Miami and won't be playing in this game. So, looking at this Sixers team without their biggest piece, can we assume that the Sixers are out of the game here? Do we think that they can even keep it close?
I guess, but I just don't see it. I don't want to bet this game. The NBA scares me so much. These playoffs have been so difficult. I'm going to stop saying that because I say that every single NBA matchup, but it really is the case. And when you look at this, okay, Joel Embiid will not play. Kyle Lowry will not play. Jimmy Butler is questionable, says he will play, but he has right knee soreness. And you wonder if you're the Heat, do you take a chance on resting Jimmy Butler because Joel Embiid is not going to be in the lineup? If I'm going one way or the other here, I think you just have to lay it with the Heat because the Sixers seem like a lost team without Joel Embiid. Yeah, I suppose that Tyrese Maxey could step up, but the fact that I don't have any confidence in James Harden is really the thing that swings me in Miami's direction here. Philadelphia brought in James Harden to be 1B to Joel Embiid's 1A, but he has not been that. It's been other players on that Sixers lineup who have had to step up, and I'm not convinced that James Harden can be that guy. Also, we know the Heat are very deep. They're great off the bench. They're great at home against the number. I believe the fifth best covering team at home against the number during the regular season. So I know it's a large number, but I'd lay the 7.5 with Miami.
Ooh, I don't want any business with a 7.5 in the playoffs. I don't care if Joel Embiid is not playing. And you're right, he's a huge part of this team. But let's look back to the final regular season matchup between these two teams. The Heat and Sixers went head to head, and the Sixers didn't have James Harden or Joel Embiid. And guess what? The Sixers not only covered the number, they won outright, 113 to 106. And I get it, it's a regular season game. It's a little different. But looking at Tobias Harris and Tyrese Maxey, I think these are two young guys that maybe we're underestimating a bit. Tyrese Maxey was huge in that game. He had 28 points. So I think that the offense might be funneling through him. I know James Harden is the big name on the roster, but really it's been Tyrese Maxey who's been big throughout the playoffs. So looking at a points prop for Tyrese Maxey, and I believe it's 22, maybe 21 and a half. I think I'm leaning that direction. Who do you think is going to have a big game in the absence of Joel Embiid?
What about Victor Oladipo? Or sorry, I'm thinking about the Heat, but I'm thinking if in the absence of Joel Embiid,
Wouldn't it be
God,
Bam Adebayo for the other side if you're looking at opposing big men who are not going to be stopped down low?
I guess yeah, that's probably true. I just don't know. I guess maybe Bam Adebayo. This is a tough one. I would if I can't decide here. If Jimmy Butler
You
doesn't play
said
for the
that
Heat,
so sorrowfully.
I know I can't figure it out. If Jimmy Butler for some reason doesn't go with the Heat, take the points prop on Victor Oladipo. That's one thing I keep waiting to happen because he keeps hitting the over whenever Jimmy does not play. Sixers wise, I just don't know if I can play at Chelsea. Maybe Bam Adebayo has a good outing, but ultimately, I think the Heat just keep doing their thing. I don't necessarily think they take advantage of the inside. I can see Jimmy Butler, if he does play, just being physical on the blocks and taking advantage of the Heat on the inside and it not necessarily having to be Adebayo. I would probably stay away from a Heat prop, but is that the way you're going to go?
I think so, just because there's a lot of question marks for the Heat as well. A
Yeah.
bunch of guys are questionable for this one. Tyler Hero was feeling a little sick, which I think he'll probably be back for this one. It's the playoffs. As long as it's not COVID, he has been a huge part of this team coming off the bench. Caleb Martin, also questionable. Markieff Morris, Jimmy Butler, day to day. I would imagine he plays, but I thought that as well in the clinching game of their last series, and he didn't play. So this is a Heat team that's especially deep, but they're going to be a little banged up going into this one. Kyle Lowry still not playing. So with all those question marks, it's hard for me to lay 7.5.
No, I get that. And I'm not going to play this, but I can't make a case for the 76ers getting the points. I just can't. And even though Kyle Lowry may not play, we saw that even he was out at the end of that series against the Hawks, and they found a way to shut down Trae Young. And even Trae Young said himself after that series, the Heat play a system defense, and Lowry in particular was very good on the perimeter at slowing down Trae Young. But as a team, with them or without them, they're a very good defending club. And so that's why I would lay it with the Heat if I'm playing it. But I'm like you, it's a lot of points. I'm not going to play it, but that would be my lean.
So before we move on to the Mavs and the Suns, we've got to talk about this trend with unders and the Heat. Under 5-0 for the Heat in the first round against the Hawks, who are usually a high-scoring team, and the Sixers 4-2 to the under as well. However, this is a very low total at 208.5. Does that scare you off of it?
Yeah, I think it does. I think I have to stay away because of
Same.
that. Yeah, yeah. It's just way too high
Yeah, I think you mean too low.
or too low. Yeah.
Yeah, 208, anytime it's under 210, I don't know what it is about that, but the way it looks on the page, it's kind of menacing when you're looking at unders. But speaking of unders, I think I like the unders in the under in this one. The Mavs and the Suns, total set at 214.5. The Suns laying 5.5 points, and the Mavs have been under machines all season long. Jenks, are we on the Mavs under train again?
Oh man, I don't know if I'm going to be on the under train, but I kind of like the Mavs and the points here, and I think because I think the Suns can win this game for sure, but 5.5 seems way too big. And the one thing the Mavs do is they're not as talented as the Suns, but the Mavs are an adjustment. And what they do is they're going to slow the game down. They're going to try and play a half court type of game. They want Luka to dictate pace. They want to hit from outside. And the Suns are going to have to make that transition where they were facing a Pelicans team that wanted to run with them, that were willing to push the pace. And that's right into their wheelhouse. With Dallas, they're going to have to find a way to mitigate Dallas trying to slow this pace because the Suns, with so many scorers, with so many options on their team, want to go up and down the court. The Mavs don't want to do this. I think the Mavs will do a good enough job of controlling pace in this series to keep it within the number. They were also 5-1 against the number in that first round series against the Jazz. And I think that continues here, particularly because Dallas is also shooting really well from outside right now. And that's going to keep them close here.
Yeah, you talk about pace and Luca slowing down the pace. I think that spells it under for me. I think we've established that. But I think the matchup for me to watch in this one is Mikal Bridges against Luka Doncic. Luka went against one of the best defensive players in the entire NBA last series, and not really head to head, but when he drove to the basket against Rudy Gobert, he made him look stupid in some of these moves. So even though Mikal Bridges was a finalist, I think, for NBA Defensive Player of the Year, I don't think it matters when you're going against a guy that's as talented as Luka Doncic. And the way Jalen Brunson's been playing, I love the Mavs and the points as well.